My father is Sunni from Damascus. My mom is Shia from Lebanon. I am Syrian Lebanese, but I'm also a Zionist. I grew up in Lebanon during the first Lebanese war, in the Bekaa Valley, in the stronghold of Hezbollah. I always thought the Israelis are monsters and they deliberately target civilians. I was fond of Hezbollah. I thought they are heroes who protect us. I spent the first 18 years of my life in Lebanon. After that, I moved to Europe. The station that changed my life was in France. وكانت ساكنة بهذا البيت. هون كانت غرفة نومي. I happened to live 200 meters away from one of the biggest synagogues in Europe, among Jews. Until then, I've never spoken to a Jew. I didn't know what a synagogue is. I was an anti-Semite. And across the street, there was a grocery store. I went down because I was hungry. I wanted to cook. And I heard people enter the store. And I realized it wasn't French. It was Hebrew, or the language of the enemy. Turned back and I saw religious Jews, 4 men with sideburns. I left everything, even my stuff. And I ran back home, went into my bedroom and locked the door. So scared I couldn't breathe. And when I saw my face in the mirror, I thought, why? Like, they didn't even look at you. Why? I decided to go back to university to understand Islam and Judaism from a neutral perspective, to understand why was the Jew my enemy. I read the history of our region, and that changed my life because I realized I was told lies. نحن بحي بالإديسون للمتدينين المحافظين. جينا لأنه في حاخام مشهور معروف بآرائه المثيرة للجدل، هو مقتنع أنه لن يتحقق السلام إلا على يد المسلمين.
Shalom.
Shalom.
ברוכים הבאים.
תודה רבה. I asked the Syrians, I'm going to go on Israel and ask people your questions. Can you believe that many of the questions were, do the Jews consider us human beings like them?
Terrible. Yes.
See, but they truly believe it.
There is an organic relationship between Israel and the nations. Our ancestor Abraham, the first thing that was said to him that you must be a blessing for all the families of the earth. So Judaism is fundamentally universal. Our interest, it is for the tikkun olam, for the reparation of the whole world.
I thought anti-Semitism is rampant in the Arab world. And my son said, Mom, you're melodramatic like all the Mideasterns. You're obsessed. Until October 7th. He comes to my room. It's 11 in the morning. He knocks on the door and says, Mom, are you sick? It's almost 11. He saw me. I'm just mesmerized, still looking on the news. So he goes, sees the news, he comes back. His name is Adam. And he stands there. He said nothing. He just shook his head and he had a tear in his eye. He understood. I'm not obsessed. I'm not melodramatic. This is what I was supporting. I know both sides of the borders, and I'm saying it's a no-go where something like October 7th can happen and be justified. We have to choose a camp. It's black and white. No more gray zones. We need moral clarity. After the propaganda machine starts spreading nonsense in the world, I switched to fighter mode and I started working on social media. Protecting Hamas does not help anyone. My priority to humanize the Syrians, the Lebanese, the Gazans in the eyes of Israelis. It is time to free Gaza from Hamas and release the rest of the hostages. Enough is enough. Nobody knows me in Europe. Here, some people know me, yes.
Hey, I'm a big fan.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.
But we needed to reach the Arabs. To the Lebanese, think like I used to think when I was a teenager. The Israelis are attacking them and Hezbollah are heroes. So I started a TikTok account, making videos in Arabic, wearing my Magen David, talking about peace with Israel. Lebanese, Syrians, people in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, they tell me we agree, we are sick of war. I'm standing here at the military cemetery, and I'm standing with the family of Ishai, who was 38 and had 4 kids and died 2.5 months ago in Lebanon.
He was a social worker. He worked in the Lud municipality with the Arab community very closely. By him, there was no difference between if you're abused by your husband if he's a Jew or if he's not a Jew.
Do you think that your son who died in Lebanon was killed by the Lebanese?
I think he was killed by Hezbollah, not the Lebanese.
We don't have nothing against the Arab because they are Arab. Ishai, our son, was work with them. We also against those who want to destroy us. That's all.
I would like to tell you, and I'm pretty sure that I'm saying this on behalf of thousands of Lebanese, if not more. I'm really sorry for your loss, as I'm sorry for the loss of any innocent Lebanese, and I'm not sorry at all for all the beating Hezbollah took, and I pray for the day all the extremists will be history. Most of my friends and family members blocked me. They didn't discuss, they blocked me. They even stopped talking to my son, and that was really harsh. The first time I came to Jerusalem, I went to the Kotel. I didn't even know how to pray. I stood there, and the only thing that crossed my mind is one word: Hineni. That this is my home. All my life, I was an atheist. Discovering Israel and Judaism, I realized that it's a humane religion. A lot of aspects appealed to me, and to find the courage to admit it to myself and to share it with my son without him questioning my sanity. All these coincidences that happened in my life were the stones. Hashem is showing me the way back home. I'm going to convert to Judaism. The plan is to complete my conversion. I'd like to make Aliyah and come live in Jerusalem. I have this absolute certainty inside me. Things are going in the right direction.
I'm very, very excited to have you here, and I really want to share your story, your very, very unique story with our viewers and with the world. So you are Lebanese?
I'm half Lebanese, half Syrian. I spent the first 18 years of my life in Lebanon through several wars with Israel. And I lived in Damascus, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in France, in Cyprus, and now I've been living in Germany for 11 years.
And you were raised in what kind of home?
Secular, middle class, so religion was irrelevant. My parents are Sunni and Shia. If they married, then religion wasn't so relevant. And they sent us to...
In other words, if a Shiite woman or man marries a Sunni woman or man, that means that's not an important issue.
Yeah. They are secular, and they sent us to a French Catholic school in Lebanon. That is why my Syrian father decided to live in Lebanon, because the education is much better than it was and still is in Syria. So we grew up celebrating every holiday, whether Muslim or Christian. And as I said, religion wasn't relevant. The only thing everybody agreed on is their hatred of the Jews.
That's reminds me of there was once a stand-up comedian who had a whole routine about that during the one of the wars in Lebanon, where he said the Druze hate the Christians hate the Muslims hate the Druze, and everyone hates us. So that's exactly it.
That was my childhood growing up. They all, I was born in the 80s, and my parents witnessed the Lebanese Civil War. Sectarianism is still like a malady. It's a problem that was never uprooted or dealt with. in Lebanon. Nevertheless, when they sit down and celebrate holidays, they can get along, those who got over their differences. Nevertheless, everybody hated the Jews and Israel. And it's quite easy growing up in Lebanon. Why wouldn't you hate the Israelis? If you would live there, you would not be fond of Israel or the Jews, especially that the Israeli narrative or the Israeli voice is omitted from our existence. So whatever the state wants you to believe, the state in Syria, the state in Lebanon, but more in Lebanon, I should say, whatever Hezbollah wants you to believe, you would believe it. There was nobody to counter the narrative we are told.
And there was no social media at that time either.
Exactly, opposed to today, there is social media. When I tell my story as a recovered anti-Semite, and I say, why wouldn't I believe everything I was told? And people say, all right, this is why they hate us today. No, I beg to differ. Today, there is social media, and people have access to information if they cared to look further than whatever they're told on TV and in newspapers, especially that nowadays many dissidents challenge the narrative that the axis of resistance keep telling. When they oppress and hurt, arrest, murder, torture their own people, you must look a bit further to understand what is their agenda.
And you had never met a Jew in your life until you left the Middle East?
Until I moved to France. I lived in 4 Arab countries, and until I moved to France and lived in the Jewish quarter in Strasbourg, I had never seen a Jew. I had never seen a synagogue. Watching families every weekend going to that big building made me wonder, why are they so obsessed with this museum? Until somebody told me that's their synagogue. How would I know? And I told the story, I don't know how many, hundreds of times. The first time I saw Jews, or I recognized that they were Jews because they were 4 ultra-Orthodox Jewish men, I had a panic attack. And I'm a fearless type. I was embarrassed. I had to understand why I panicked. And that was the first and the last panic attack I ever had. And I realized, after thinking about the incident, that I panicked because for the first time in my life, and I was 25, 26, for the first time in my life, I was sharing the same space with a Jew, the enemy.
And how did you get over that panic? How did you learn that the situation was somewhat different than you had been taught?
Well, first of all, I was trying to help myself calm down and breathe. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was so embarrassed because I was red and sweaty. And I had left my stuff in the grocery store where I saw the men. And I ran out, crossed the street, went up to my bedroom, 3rd floor, and locked the door. Can you imagine? And I thought, like, they didn't even look at me. Nobody was following me. I was embarrassed.
That was the devil incarnate. That's what you saw in front of you, as far as you were concerned.
Yes. At first, I had to go back to the grocery store and get my stuff. And the man had left. There was only the storekeeper. And he asked me where I came from. And I told him, I have Syrian, I have Lebanese. Today is my first day here. And I lied to him. I told him that I forgot my wallet. But he smiled. He understood. He knew that I was lying. And he was nice to me. He helped me with my bags. And I decided to continue shopping there because he was across the street from where I was staying for months. And I think in retrospect, thinking about it years later, I think that day He converted me from an enemy to an ally through kindness. Had he reacted differently, had he asked me to leave, to never come back, that would have changed my life. So first of all, he was nice. Second, nobody looked at me. I wasn't chased out of the store. And I sat down over months. I was staying in an old house and the windowsills were very wide. So I sat on the windowsill and watched those Jews. And I realized I didn't know that some Jews covered, like some women covered their head, that they dressed modestly. I didn't know much about them, whether religious or secular. And I realized that the Jewish quarter in France meant there were Jews living there. It was filled with Jews, opposed to the Jewish quarter where I worked in my early 20s in Damascus, where there were no Jews. The same applies to the Jewish quarter in Beirut. There are no Jews. In Europe, there were Jews, and they seemed quite friendly and nice to me. And I was thinking maybe the Jews in Europe were friendly and the wicked ones are those who live in Israel. And I wanted to know. First of all, I realized that my perception of the Jews in Israel was shaped by the Secretary General of Hezbollah, by Hassan Nasrallah. Everything I knew about Israel, I heard from him and I believed him. So I started there. I started reading about Hassan Nasrallah and the history of Hezbollah, the history of our region. And I had access to uncensored information in France. And I give an example, especially to the young ones who don't understand what I mean by uncensored information in Europe. And I tell them that Wikipedia is banned in Turkey in 2024. So what we saw on the internet was censored. And watching the early videos of Hassan Nasrallah opened my eyes. Watching or coming to realize that Hezbollah was one of the militias that fought against other Lebanese during the civil war, against other Shia. And they told their agenda, and it had nothing to do with Lebanon. Coming to that realization filled me with anger because I realized we've been lied to. And all those who lost their lives in vain. What we were told at school, that the Jews came from Eastern Europe and stole Palestine, implying Palestine used to be a country with specific political borders, is not true. Had the Arabs accepted to share the land with the Jews, all these senseless wars could have been avoided. That filled me with anger, opened my eyes, and put me on a journey of transformation, to put it this way.
And how did that continue?
I decided to expose the lies. I'm going to write a book, and I was really angry. And I made my first Israeli friend. I met Yossi Klein Halevi. And he told me, well, that's good. He read a few chapters and he told me, it's really good if you want to get killed. So what is your goal? You have to calm down. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? And he was my mentor, for which I'm really grateful. He helped me process.
The author, Yossi Klein Halevi.
The American-Israeli author, Yossi Klein Halevi. And we were still friends. I introduced him to my son this summer when I took my son with me to Israel. And he helped me calm down and understand why we're brainwashed and develop a goal. What do we want at the end of the day? We want to live peacefully. So what is my message for the Muslims? And I went back to university and I studied Islamic studies in Germany to understand how can Islam be updated or become compatible with this day and age? And I wanted to understand from a European or academic neutral perspective, which led me to study Jewish studies because I needed to understand Judaism and Israel, because I was seeking reconciliation, not condemnation. And that brought me to discover Judaism, and myself, an atheist who grew up between the Christians and the Muslims, and I never believed there is a God. I fell in love with the wisdom and logic I found in Judaism, and slowly I came to realize that I am a believer. And I told the rabbi who was teaching us not to convert us. Most of us weren't Jews. I told him, I'm converting to Judaism. And that's what that was my personal transformation journey. That's my gift to myself. And it's rich to say it, because I think Hashem bestowed a gift upon me when I was shown the light, when I was shown the way back home.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And you're on this journey now.
It still gives me goosebumps because I'm overwhelmed by this gift. And only on October 7th, I understood why I was shown that light. I always thought, or I always felt a bit guilty, secretly, maybe a little ashamed, because why me? I'm not special. If Hashem can show me the light, why not show it to others? And what do I do with this gift? Because it comes with a responsibility. A lot of people accuse the Jews of being arrogant. What do you mean you're the chosen people? They don't understand that this mission they accept comes with a great responsibility, and they've been paying for it dearly. And this is how I perceived it. This gift comes with a responsibility. And nobody knew that I'm converting. On October 7th, I understood that I had to speak up for the people I saw great value in, and the world did them great injustice. But this injustice I've seen on October 7th shocked life out of me. And when I came to Jerusalem and I went to the Kotel, I just stood there not knowing what I should do. But I stood there, like, Hineni. This is the only word that crossed my mind. And I didn't know much about Judaism at that stage. I just knew that I need to do something. And my natural reaction was, first, I have to tell the world that I'm converting. There is nothing to be ashamed of. It's not my dirty secret. Even if I'm going to become an advocate an advocate of peace with Israel, I don't have to conceal that and fake being the righteous Muslim ally. No, I'm converting, and I have to tell the world that I'm doing it and why I'm doing it, and remind especially those young Jews who are gaslit and intimidated and confused that there is nothing wrong with you and everything wrong with the world.
And you've been communicating with a lot of people online through your social media posts. And what kind of reactions do you get?
Also on October 7th, I became an accidental activist. I had nothing to do with social media. I always thought it's a waste of time. But out of frustration, I thought, whatever I have to say, nobody knows me. I can say it on social media, uncensored. And people started following me. The Muslims or the Arabs were infuriated, accused me of being paid by the Zionists, etc., which is a natural reaction. I can understand. They couldn't believe why I would side with the Israelis. The Jews were much more emotional about it. They thank me for what I'm doing for them, and I tell them I'm doing this for us, for humanity, not only for the Jews. Any righteous person in their right mind should condemn what happened on October 7th, and it is scary. If Hamas and their masses, whoever trained and financed what they've done, if they dare do this to the Israelis, not being deterred by the reaction of the West or the Americans, imagine what they would do to their own people if they disagree with them. Imagine what the axis of resistance would do to their own subjects if they dare do this to the Israelis, film it and broadcast it. So we should all be alert and alarmed by what happened.
And then deny it. Film it, broadcast it, show pride in it, and then deny it.
The first person who started this denial in a very bold fashion was the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. He went as far as to accuse the IDF of killing the Israeli civilians. Even Hamas didn't do that.
Wow.
So they filmed, they shared, and the world started apologizing, denying, justifying. It's insane. Even before Israel responded, the world accused Israel. It's your fault. And no civilians were attacked, which is insane. The first and the only hostage released, the number of hostages released included elderly and children. And Hamas officials had the audacity to deny they targeted civilians. And the world allowed them. They got away with it.
I think the world, not the entire world, but many in the world, were very happy to help them deny it because it's not an easy thing to face up to. In what languages do you post? Do you post in Arabic as well?
In Arabic and in English. And the videos I make in English, I always provide Arabic subtitles. We thought at the beginning, because I don't work alone, this is a project that I started with academics who are experts on anti-Semitism, but unfortunately anti-Semitism in Europe, because we have no data. The Arab world doesn't acknowledge the problem, so why would they research it? We thought that I have to address only Arabs, but we soon realized that we have a massive problem in the West. This is why I started posting more and more in English, but I always provide Arabic subtitles. And you would be surprised that many Arabs write to me directly, private messages, ask me not to share their names. Sometimes they write to me from Beirut, from Damascus, or Cairo, or Baghdad. Some Iranians write to me from Tehran, telling me, we're proud of you, we wish we could say what you're saying. And I understand that they're risking a lot by reaching out. If someone is monitoring their accounts, they would pay for even showing solidarity for the words they are saying. However, when Muslims write to me privately, and they're living in Australia or in Canada or in Brazil and tell me, we wish we could speak up, we're proud of you. I tell them, darling, you don't need to be proud of me. We need you to speak up.
That's very true. That's very, very true. You said that you were privileged to have God show you the light. I think God shows everyone the light, but not everyone is capable of seeing it. The ones who are capable of seeing it get the gift.
Thank you so much for saying this. I had a meeting in Manhattan, and I felt guilty up until that point, where one of the persons in the meeting was a rabbi, and I didn't know that. So he learned that I'm converting, and after the meeting, he asked to speak to me. And he said, thank you for reading the signs. And it didn't hit me at first. I left and I was walking back to my hotel, and I suddenly looked up. And that day he absolved me of my guilt because I realized what he said, thank you for reading the signs. Everyone is shown the light. Exactly what you said. And I say, when I speak to Jewish crowds, even a Hamas terrorist, even those who broke into homes on the outskirts of Gaza, everyone is shown the light, and God knows better. So if a Hamas terrorist saw a child in a safe room, he could spare their lives. He could have ignored the child, continue, do whatever you want to do. But we are always given the chance to change our lives, to change our decisions, to spare somebody's life. There are consequences, of course, but we are all given the chance to choose to be humane instead of behaving like monsters. And you are right. I just learned to worry about my own. I push in the direction I think is the right thing to do for me. And I don't worry about others, what they're shown, their decisions. I just speak my mind, what I think is the right thing to do, and I hope it inspires a few to speak up or to reconsider what they believe. And I hope that Arabs believe that I, who visited Israel several times since October 7th, I know better. They've never spoken to a Jew. The Israelis are not the monsters they are told they are. In Israel, I met many partners for peace. I still seek those partners among the Arabs. There are a few, but the majority want Israel annihilated, and this is not going to happen. They just have to accept it. And Israel is a dot on the map. And they think Israel controls the entire universe. It is absurd. It's ridiculous as well, but it causes a lot of harm. And I hope this would change sooner or later. I believe that Israel will prevail, and that on October 7th, the axis of resistance, this alliance of evil, committed suicide. It was the beginning of the end of this alliance.
Let's pray that that is indeed so. So let me ask you a question a little bit down to earth about what's happening in Lebanon now. I mean, Hezbollah is being defeated on the ground. Nasrallah is thankfully no longer in this world, and his successor and his successor's successor have been eliminated. And Israel is destroying the terrorist infrastructures in southern Lebanon. We see there was not a single house, not even one house in southern Lebanon that didn't hold ammunition and rockets and all kinds of things. There was even one house they showed that had an entry to a tunnel, and the whole house was filled with bags of rocks and sand because they didn't want the Israelis to know that the tunnel was being built underneath the house, which means that nobody actually lived in the house. So, and now Hezbollah is being destroyed, decimated in Lebanon. How do the Lebanese people see that? Is that going to give them the strength to rise up?
I hope so. Lebanon is not Gaza. The Lebanese are not, they don't attend UNRWA schools. Many of them don't belong into the pro-Palestine camp. They have seen what the PLO brought upon their country back in the 70s and in the 80s. So I would say with confidence that half of the Lebanese are opposed to Hezbollah. However, Hezbollah is very well armed. They are stronger than the Lebanese army. They are ideologues, seriously nasty people. They would never stop to rape. So compared to Hamas, we should take them seriously. So the Lebanese were intimidated. They don't want to fight. They cannot fight. And strangely, the Lebanese army are bystanders. So as if Lebanon doesn't have an army, nobody's intervening.
It's like a parasite that has taken over the body.
Indeed. And Israel is doing everybody's dirty job. However, I hope after Hezbollah is dismantled that the Lebanese will rise to the opportunity take back their country because they will have to rebuild the institutions. They will have to rebuild the country. This is not an easy task. The Lebanese, they know that more than 1 million Lebanese are displaced. The Shiite regions are being seriously destroyed. The economy will suffer for decades to come, but this is their opportunity. The problem was ignored for so long. Since year 2000, every dissident tried to convince or pressure Hezbollah to disarm. As the Israelis left southern Lebanon, what was their excuse? Nobody could do the job, and Hezbollah, to be fair, assassinated every prominent voice, every politician, every journalist, every prominent voice speaking against them was assassinated. So now that Israel is destroying the infrastructure of Hezbollah and preventing them from rebuilding this very complex organization and cutting their ties or supply chain with Syria, Iraq, and Iran, I hope that the Lebanese will understand now is your opportunity, but Israel cannot do the entire job for you. They cannot change the political structure. It's up to the Lebanese. They have to negotiate with the international community and find ways to rebuild a healthy country.
I think that the message is very clear. You get what you deserve. If you do the work, you get a good result. And if you allow fear to rule, then you have to live with that outcome as well.
Not only that, many got what they asked for. You wanted war? War it is. You wanted martyrdom? Then you left this world. Your wish was granted. So those who are still fighting, eager to become martyrs, will become martyrs. It is sad to see that many people lose their lives, and it's not their choice. They brought misery upon their own families, children. Now, I have many friends in the IDF, and I know nobody enjoys killing. Nobody enjoys war. War is nasty. It is those who strive for wars who are responsible for those civilian casualties, whether it's the wise leadership of Hamas that wanted this war in Gaza, or the wise leadership of Hezbollah and their leadership in Iran. They wanted war, their people suffer. Hopefully, once we get rid of them, hopefully others, wiser leaders, wiser decision makers will choose a different future for their children, at least, because they owe it to the future generations. They don't have to like the Israelis. They don't have to like the Jews. They just have to be invested in the well-being of their own children, their own societies.
Well, as Golda Meir said, when the Arabs love their children more than they hate Israel, we'll have peace. Thank you very much, Rawan Osman, for speaking to us. And I hope that next time you're in Israel, perhaps we'll be able to get together again. Shalom to our viewers. B'simcha gdola.